Okay, so let's go further into these word problems and take a look at using percents in word problems. And then we'll start looking at some applications of word problems. So one possible word problem here, one would look like this. PDQ Corporation estimates net profit to be 12% of gross sales. In a year where in a year where net profit is estimated at $480,000. What is gross sales? What is, what are, I don't know what the proper grammar is on that one, but close enough. So I could use the table here, but let's go ahead and just try to use a simple proportion. Do we have a percent given? 12%. Of course, that is 12 out of 100. What does the 12 represent? There's net profit. Very good. What does the 100 represent? Gross. Perfect. Gross sales. Whenever it says 12% of gross sales or out of gross sales, that's telling you that the gross sales are the base, or what the 100% represents there. So now we have the 480,000. Does that represent gross sales or net profit? Net profit. So now to find our gross sales, because that's what we're looking for. Is that what we're looking for? I just kind of let it slip. Yes, gross sales is what we're looking for. So this is the number we want to solve this problem. We cross multiply 100 times 480,000 divided by 12 is 4 million. Gross sales were $4 million. I'd settle for that. Of course, you're going to lose half of that 480,000 in taxes. True. So anyway, we match up the pieces on each side of the proportion. So next, let's take a look at this question. Jan pays 32% in taxes. In a year where Jan earns $80,000, how much does she take home? In other words, how much does she get to keep after taxes? So is there a percent on this problem? You bet there is. What is it? 32. So 32 out of 100. What's the 32 represent? Taxes. What's the 100 represent? Well, there's the other thing that's mentioned in this problem is take-home pay. Are taxes figured out as a portion of the take-home pay? As a piece of the take-home pay? No, taxes are a piece of your whole income. The proper term would be gross earnings, but we don't have to use the proper term. We just say the whole income, right? Whatever words make sense to you. So now on the other side of this, does the 80,000 represent either of those two items, the taxes or the whole income? Yeah, she earns 80,000. That is the whole income. What's this blank piece represent? The dollar amount of the taxes. Is that what we're looking for? No, we're looking for how much she takes home. So this is not what we're looking for, but can we find it from there? Yes, let's go ahead and find that number. 32 times 80,000 divided by 100 is what? 33,600? 33,600? Is that? 25, okay, sorry, 25,600, not 33. 25,600, there we go. Sorry about that. So 25,600. How can we use that number to find what we're looking for? You got it, 80,000 minus 25,600, which is going to give us $54,400. That is what she takes home. Of course, the other way we could have looked at this, percents, dollar amounts. What we put in the middle here can be anything. We could say gross pay minus taxes equals take home. We know that the taxes are 32%. Where does the 100 go here? The 100 represents the total, or the gross pay. So 100 minus 32 is 68. The take-home pay represents 68%. $80,000 represents the gross. So in this case, we're looking for this number here. So I'm going to ignore this middle row. And I will calculate cross-multiplying here. 68 times 80,000 divided by 100 gives you 54,400. What do you think? We'll come back to seeing that table used for problems in more examples. For those of you that are taking business math next, which I think is almost all of you, that's a tool that I use in the business math class a lot if you take it with me. We start doing percent increases and discounts and markups and markdowns. That table is a very powerful tool. But now, as promised in the first hour, I want to show you some examples where that rate method is preferred. And that rate method for percents is preferred when we have a whole amount, and from that whole amount, we're going to use a percent to find a piece of it. And the term that's used in math most often for that piece is called a portion of that whole amount. Some of the most pure examples of this come off of interest and commissions and taxes, stuff like that. For example, let's say you're going to pay 6% tax. Find the amount of tax on a $300 purchase. Well, you're going to take the $300 purchase times, not 6, but 0.06, that percent turned into a rate. The term rate actually means the decimal form of a percent. And you're going to get $18 to the amount of tax. Now, had you not remembered the rate method, you could just do 6% as 6 over 100. So how much is that out of 300? Cross multiply and divide, it'll give you the $18. But as we can see, and we noted this earlier, the rate method, when you're doing problems like this, is a lot quicker than setting up the proportion and cross multiplying and dividing. Especially if you're using your calculator and just quickly type in 300 times 0.06, and there it is. But you can always fall back to that proportion as long as you do it right. But anyway, one example where the rate method is preferred, this type of calculation happens a lot, is in commission. Not totally sure if I spelled that right, but I think I'm close. When you're dealing with commissions, you're dealing with a percentage of, usually it's a sales position, so you're getting paid on a percentage of sales. There are sometimes a percentage of dollar value of production can be a commission. Usually when you're doing some sort of a production job, it'd be paid, it's called piece rate, which is a set amount per item produced or per item per task performed. But commission can be done on those types of jobs as well. But commission is your earnings are a portion of, a percentage of a certain dollar amount, whether that's sales or production value or whatever. We're going to do sales examples just because that's the most common and easiest to do. So let's say your commission, you get a 12% commission on net sales. So let's say you have a week where you have $3,800 in sales for the week. Find your commission. Well, your commission is going to be the $3,800 times what? 12%, which is 0.12, which is what? 456? Is that right? $456. So that's your commission. Now, one thing you'll notice is I said net sales. This can get complicated a little bit more. So this is week, let's say this is week 1. In week 2, let's say you have 4,100 in sales and 400 in returns from the previous week. What does that mean? Well, your net sales, you have your 4,100 in sales minus 400 in returns gives you 3,700. 3,700 is your net sales, which will be multiplied times the 0.12, which is what, 444 would be your pay for that week. Does that look right? Any questions? This is what they call a commission, or a pure commission if you want to get technical with it. There are not too many jobs out there that are pure commission anymore because, you know, by labor laws have tightened down a little bit. So they have to prove, in order to pay someone pure commission, they have to prove that expected sales are high enough to be at or above minimum wage. But that doesn't mean you can't perform poorly and still earn less than minimum wage, but they have to show that the average person is going to earn at or above minimum wage at that position. So a lot of times they do a salary plus commission system or a wage plus commission system. An example of a salary plus might be you get $200 per week plus 8% of sales. Notice that percentage is less because you are getting a base salary. So let's say you have 4,500 in sales. What are your earnings for the week? Will be 4,500 times what? 0.08 for the 8%, which is going to give us $360. Is that your pay? No. What do we have to do? You add the 200 salary. So $560 is your pay for that week. In a wage plus, let's say that you're going to get paid $4 per hour plus 9% of sales. Yes, the $4 per hour is less than minimum, but if you can prove that your expected sales will get you above minimum wage, that is acceptable if it's approved. What's that? Yep. They did change it though. It used to be a waitress minimum wage was flat out like $2.35 or something like that. But now you do have to prove that you get enough tips. They didn't force you to report tips before, but now you have to report. And if the reported tips for your employees do not bring their wage up to below minimum wage, then they crack down on you. There are actually some states that do not have a waitress minimum wage, period, if you can prove high enough tips. In fact, there are some states that actually allow, there are a few businesses that are popular enough that I know of. I'd have to look them up. I don't remember my name right now, but actually charge a waitress or a wait staff to work there. A wait person will actually pay $50 a night or so to work there because the tips are enough to not only make up the $50, but also put them well above minimum wage, which seems like a scam to me. If you're going to pay me to come work for me and I'm going to collect the profits off of what you do too. Which, hey, more power to them. So anyway, so let's say in a week where you work 30 hours and have 3,200 in sales. Well, there's two things that have to be done here. 3,200 times 0.09, which is going to be, what, 288? Yep. Then what else do we have to do? 30 hours times 4, or 4 times 30 is $120. So $408 is your pay for that week. Many times when you're on a salary plus, they don't do salary plus a straight commission. They do salary plus kind of a form of graduated commission. But it might be you get paid $300 per week plus 11% on sales over $3,000. What that means is that $300 per week, they're compensating by that by not giving you any commission on your first 3,000 sales. What they're saying is that that first 3,000 of sales is expected of you for that $300 salary, that you increase your pay if you go over that. So on a week where sales are 5,200. How do we figure out our commission here, or how do we figure out our pay? Yeah, 5,200 minus 3,000 gives us 2,200 times 11%, so 0.11. So it's $242 is the commission, plus the 300, the salary. So $542. Make sense? Then there's a full-on graduated commission. Where your commission is on there. Now there are sliding scale commissions. I'm not going to go through an example of that where your full commission actually goes up depending on your sales level, up or down. We're just going to look at a simple graduated commission where the sales level changes as you go, or the commission level changes as you increase sales. let's say you're 0 to 2,000, you're going to get 8%. Your 2,000 plus to 5,000, you're going to collect 12%. And then 5,000 plus, you're going to get 18%. So let's say your weekly sales are $6,200. Did we go over the 2,000? Yes. So that means the first $2,000 goes at the 8%, which is $160. How much is left? Or 6,200 minus 4,200 is there. Did we go over the 5,000 total? Yeah, we did, right? So we're going to get this full amount at 12%. So 5,000 minus 2,000 is the next $3,000 is going to get figured at 12%. So 3,000 times 0.12 is $360. Well, did we go past the 5,000? Yeah, so some of it gets figured in here. Well, we figured on 2,000, we just figured on 3,000 more. These was with $1,200. Or you could have just done 6,200 minus 5,000, there's $1,200 left. That last $1,200 gets figured at 18%, which is $216, which adds up to what, $736, I believe, is your pay for the week. Like I said, this is a graduated commission. There's something called a sliding commission. In a sliding commission, if you went over $5,000, your whole sales would be at the higher percent rather than piece by piece. But I don't have time to go over every possible combination. I mean, there are graduated commissions with base salary and all that stuff that they can basically make up whatever they want to try to figure out your commission. One last thing on commission, though, that I do want to warn you about. This was huge in the 90s, got a lot of people into some financial trouble. It is regulated a little bit now, but it still exists. Let's say that you take a job where they're going to promise you 15% commission on sales with an $800, let's word it a little bit, with guaranteed $800 per week minimum. And the key word in this whole phrase is draw. Minimum draw. And the way this was explained to potential employees was, hey, you're going to get at least $800 per week. We're going to guarantee you $800 per week. Well, what does this mean? So let's look at week 1. Let's say your sales for that week are $3,000. Your commission is going to be that 3,000 times 0.15, which is how much? $450, correct? How much are you going to get paid? $800, right? They said you're going to get them guaranteed $800 a week. You only earned $450, which means the other $350 of that is unearned. That portion is called a draw. Let's say in week 2, you get a little better. You now have $5,000 in sales in week 2. What is your commission? Well, 5,000 times 0.15 is $750. What are you going to get paid? $800. But again, you only earn $750, so 50 of that is a draw, which you now bring a draw balance of $400. Now we're going to accelerate time just a little bit here.
So you're really not making commission.
No, you're getting the minimum draw every week right now. But the commission is still relevant. And I'll show you why here. Now we're accelerating time. Most people, it takes them several weeks to get up to speed. But let's say that in the third week you hit your stride, and in this third week you have $8,000 in sales. Your earned commission, 8,000 times your 15% or 0.15 is $1,200. How much are you going to get paid? Why 800? You just earned 1,200.
But you're guaranteed it.
You are actually going to get 800, but the 800 is not because it's the draw. The 800 is because you earned 12, but you owed 4. That draw is not a gift. It's not a guaranteed minimum wage. It is a loan. Interest free usually. There were some companies that did sneak an interest rate in there, by the way. That's outlawed now. You cannot put an interest rate. It's kind of, yes. At the end of the year, you have to make up the difference if you go over it. But even though you earn $1,200, you're getting a lesser amount. Now, that was bad of me. I should have tried to make that so it didn't come out to 800. But when your commission finally does go above that $800, anything above $800 is going to go back to pay off that draw until you've paid it off. Now your balance, you paid off the full 400, so now your balance is 0. In the next week, whatever you earn in commission, you will get paid because you have no draw to pay back. Now, this was very popular in the late 80s and early 90s in the insurance industry. Now, the problem with this, okay, $800 a week guaranteed draw, that's $40,000 a year. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, that was a really good salary. And that was good pay. So $40,000 a year was very attractive to a lot of people. Here's the problem. Let's say you get into this and you've worked for 3 or 4 months and you realize, I am not very good at sales and I don't like selling. Well, you might have $5,000 or $6,000 sitting out there in what you've drawn, basically a loan on that draw. Guess what happens if you quit? You owe it back. And the second you quit, that is now a loan. And almost every company that provided this did provide, once you break ties with the company, there was an interest rate on that draw. And it was not up to credit card levels, but it was significant. You're talking, 10, 12%. It wasn't 19 or 20% like a credit card, but it was still a very significant interest level. Any questions? Okay, well, something to look out for. That's one of my speeches for the day is be careful with that. The next thing I want to address is something called interest. And we're going to start out talking about simple interest. Simple interest is just that. It is the simplest way you can calculate interest. What simple interest means is interest is only calculated for one of two things. One, at the end of a term, or two, if there's an action on the account. If you have a savings account that is simple interest, let's say it's 6 months simple interest, no interest will get added into that account until the end of the 6 months. Unless, let's say you went in and deposited an extra $5 every month. Every time you make a deposit, before they make the deposit, they figure out the interest and add it into the account. Then they put your deposit in. Or if you went in and drew out a few dollars, every time you go to draw it out, before they'll let you draw out the money, they figure out the interest and put it in there before you draw it out. I'm going to show you a couple little tricks like this too. So let's say you got a loan that is simple interest. And we're going to get a little bit higher rate. Let's say you got 8% simple interest on, say you got a $12,000 loan for 4 years. Now, if you did not pay on this loan at all for 4 years, the amount of interest, the formula for the amount of interest is equal to the principal times the rate. Remember, the rate is the percent as a decimal, times the time. And the time is always in years. So if we don't do anything with this loan until the end of the 4 years, the amount of interest that'll build up, what's the principal? The base amount, the $12,000. What is my rate? 8%, so I'm going to write that as 0.08, because it has to be the decimal. My time is 4 years, so just 4. So 12,000 times 8% times 4 years is $3,840 is my interest. Does that look right? So that would be my amount of interest. My balance, or something, if you're in business math, you'd hear the maturity value. Would be the $12,000 plus the $3,840, or $15,840. Now I'm going to show you a little trick here. These numbers may not work out, so I'm not going to put an end of time frame on this. Let's say that you have a $20,000 loan. It is at, you're paying currently 9% on it. And you're making monthly payments. Let's say your monthly payment is $400. So let's say month 1. Before you pay the $400, what are they going to do? Actually, when you pay the $400, they're going to do it, but they're going to do it before they subtract the $400 from the account. They're going to add in the interest, right? So our interest is $20,000. 9% is 0.09. Now it's 1 month's worth of interest. Now the time we said was always in years, so this is going to be 1/12. So 20,000 times 9% times 1/12. $150 in interest, correct? So what happens is they add in that interest of $150. Then they subtract out your payment of $400. So your balance at the end of that first month is $19,750. Month 2. Again, before you make your payment, they figure out the interest. So it's $19,750 times 0.09 times 1/12. What's that come out to be? $148.13, right? $148.13. So again, that is added on before they subtract your payment of $400. So your balance is now $19,498.13. What's that? I thought this would be 12. I did put I put 12 in the calculator. It should be 1 out of 12. You're right. Now in the third month, your interest is $19,498, 13 times 0.09 times 1/12. $146.24. So again, that is going to get added to your balance here. Before we subtract out the $400 payment. Now we're going to stop there. We're only going to go 3 months because I'm going to show you a little trick. Now it's only going to come out to be a few dollars a year, but almost every loan is done this way because they just assume you're going to make monthly payments. So they don't specify, compounded monthly or monthly interest or whatever. They just assume you're going to make monthly payments and they figure out the interest and add it to the balance before they put in your payment. So what if instead of making payments every month like this, what if we started out at the beginning and just made, let's say you get your tax refund or a bonus check or something, and I'm just going to start out at the very beginning. I'm going to take my $20,000 and at the very beginning of the first month, so there is no interest built up, I'm going to pay 3 months worth of payments, $1,200. So I'm now at $18,900. Now at the end of 3 months, the interest is going to build, right? So let's say at the end of that third month when I go to make that fourth payment, what's going to be owed? 18,800, you're right, sorry. Man, I'm off today, sorry about that. So at the end of month 3, you're going to take that 18,800 times 0.09 times, now it's 3 months worth of interest that's built up, right? So 423 in interest. So you add the 423. Your balance is at $19,223. You just saved about $21 in interest by making one payment. And the reason for that is something called compounding. If you're making that payment every month, they figure in the interest every month. And it upsets my bank terribly because I'll do this. And I get my tax refund or I get a bonus check or I do special projects. I run a business on the side too, so when I get a check for something like that, I'll go in and I'll make 3 or 4 of my mortgage payments all at once. So what that means is I'll go 3 months without making a payment. That means is they go 3 months without adding interest into my account. Where that works to my advantage is every time they add an interest, well, from that point on out, there's interest on top of that interest. It's called compounding. Well, so now they go 4 months without adding an interest. There's no interest on top of the interest. There's no compounding. Now, the next time I make a payment, there's a large amount of interest that gets added in, but it's simple interest and not compound interest. I get that nasty letter from my bank every couple of months saying, hey, you haven't made a payment for 2 months. It's to your benefit because interest is building. Yeah. There are some banks around, by the way, that actually have disallowed that. I know RCU is one of them. I don't like to name businesses by name, but I've had students that got in trouble. They thought they were paying ahead, making payments, but they have a policy that once you get more than 2 months ahead on your payments, any payments made go straight to principal. They don't apply to future monthly payments. So people that thought they were like 6 months ahead, after 2 months, they're delinquent because it didn't get applied to another payment. So you do have to be careful with that. Big question to ask whenever you get a loan is, are there any penalties for early payment and are there any rules about paying ahead? Because some places will say, no, you can only pay 2 months ahead. Okay, so I mentioned that word compounding. What's that? Yeah, but if there's a loophole that saves me money,
Well, yeah, they're out for themselves.
and so am I. Not to be cold, but yes, they're out to make money. They're out for themselves, and I am out for myself too. When it comes to business and money, it's within ethical standards. Yep. I'm pretty sure they're going to have something to eat at the end of the day. So, anyway, compounding. Let's look at an example. Let's say you put money in the bank in an investment or an account or whatever. You deposit $3,000 at 8% for 5 years. If we did simple interest, assuming you didn't add any money or withdraw any money, the amount of interest earned is going to be just 3,000 times 0.08 times 5, which is what, $1,200 in interest? Which means at the end of the 5 years, you have 3,000 plus 1,200, so $4,200. That's what you have. But that's simple interest. Most banks will not use simple interest for anything past 6 months. In fact, some of them don't use simple interest for anything past 3 months, 90 days. They use something called compounding, which means every so often they figure out the interest and they add it in. So we're going to do the same problem with one slight difference. Deposit $3,000 at 8% compounded quarterly. For 5 years. What's that compounded quarterly mean? Well, it means every quarter, every 3 months, if you want to think of it that way, 4 times a year, they're going to figure out the interest, add it to your account. That becomes part of your balance, and the next quarter you get interest on top of that interest. So let's look at how that works. In quarter 1, your balance was $3,000 times 0.08 times 1/4 of a year is your time, a quarter of a year. So that comes out to be what, $60 in interest? Which means your balance at the end of the quarter is $3,060. Now in your second quarter, is your interest going to be 3,000 times 0.08? No, it's going to be 3,060 times 0.08 times 1/4. Which is $61.20, right? Which means your balance is $3,161.20. So this means you start quarter 3, 3,100, that must be $21, not 61. $3,121.20. $3,121.20 times 0.08 times 1/4. Which gives us $62.42. You can see the amount of interest is rising every quarter because the balance is going up. You've got that interest added in and you're figuring out the new interest on top of that old interest. How many times would I have to do this to get through 5 years? Well, how many times a year do I have to do this? 4 times a year, 4 quarters. So for 5 years, I'd have to do it 20 times. I don't want to do this 20 times. Time to look for a shortcut. I look at this piece right here. I have my $3,000, right? And I'm actually, what I'm more specifically I'm looking at is just this piece here. The 0.08 times 1/4. 0.08 times 1/4 is 0.02. 0.02 as a decimal represents what percent? 2%. So what that means is I am adding 2% onto it every quarter, right? 1/4 of the 8%. So if I have the full amount, let's start out with the $3,000, which is my 100%, right? That's my beginning amount or beginning balance. I'm going to add a certain amount of interest to that, which is 2%, right? Came out to be $60 for the first month. My ending balance, which was $3,060, what percent is that ending balance? Well, 100 plus 2 is 102. Let's see if that works. If I took my $3,000 and I found 102%, in other words, I'm going to multiply by what? 1.02. I get 3,060. Well, let's see if that works for the second month. I take my 3,060 times 1.02. I get $3,121.20. Was that my balance at the end of the second month? Yes, it was. So each month, instead of going through all this and having to add the interest on, I can just multiply by 1.02 or 102%. How many times do I have to multiply by that? 20 times. 4 times a year for 5 years. 20 times. Do we have a shortcut in math for multiplying by the same number over and over again? Yes, we do. Power of 20. So I can take 3,000 times, I don't even need the parentheses really, 1.02 to the power of 20. Now, 4457.84. Compare that to if I didn't compound interest, my amount was $4,200. So I made an extra $257.84 due to compound interest. Now in this case, that $257 isn't a lot of money, but it's still something better than nothing, right? Every little extra bit counts. Where this idea of compound interest is really significant. Now this is an example where I realize it's not applicable to everybody in the group. But if it's not applicable to you, it's applicable to your kids and whoever. There's always somebody in your life you can share it with that it has meaning for. Let's say you get out of school here and you're like 22 years old. Yes, I know, some of us are past that. But you have kids, or you will have kids someday that maybe this will be a good example to teach them. Grandkids possibly, there you go. There's always someone in your life. 22 years old. What age do you think you're going to get to retire at? I always tell people about 3.5 minutes before I die. But 67 right now is minimum age for Social Security. It's probably going to be higher than that before I get there, but let's go 67. Like I said, I'm pretty sure my retirement will be prompted by a 911 call. So anyway, how many years is that? 45 years. Now let's step back to this 22 years. I know, again, not applicable to all of us, but when you're in college, you're living kind of cheaply, right? If you're that age, you might be still living at home with your parents, driving an older car, scraping by with whatever, wearing your old clothes instead of updating to the newest styles or whatever to get through, to save money to get through school. Now, a lot of my students, they get out of school, they get their degree, they get that first good job, they're making good money. One of the first things they want is a new car, better car. So they go out and they get a car and make a car payment. And can't blame them. They want to get out of their parents' house. So they move out, get an apartment, paying more for rent. Or they move from their kind of crappy apartment that they were living in school and get rid of their roommates and get an apartment all by themselves. They're paying a little bit more in rent. Now let's consider this option for a second. Let's say that you keep living like you were when you were in school. Maybe staying with the parents, driving that old car for a few more years, whatever. Or keeping your roommates and sharing your apartment with 3 or 4 roommates to keep expenses down. How much money do you think you could save up and put away in that first year of work? 4,000, 5,000, 10,000? 10,000 is probably stretching it quite a bit. But I would say probably 5,000 isn't unreasonable. Now the reason I say 5,000 is that's 5,000 is also the limit that the federal government puts on individual retirement accounts every year. You can put more in retirement, but you have to go through other. You can't just do IRAs. But in an IRA account, if you put away 5,000 a year, and we're just going to put $5,000 away once at age 22, you're going to leave it there for 45 years. What type of annual interest do you think you can get on it? Now, I'm not talking about going to the bank and saying, here's my money, hold it for 45 years. I'm not going to an actual investment planner like a State Farm Investments or Edward Jones, or there's Fidelity, there's Country Financial here in town. I'm not endorsing any particular financial institution, but go to an actual professional investment firm and get someone to sit down with you and discuss what you want to do. Over 45 years, anybody want to guess what type of annual return you can get? This usually shocks people. Throughout the history of the stock market, even over 40-year periods, even in periods that include the Great Depression in the 1920s and 30s, the average annual return over a 40-year period is between 12 and 13%. Yeah. So let's say we get 12%. Let's go on the low end of that. We're going to compound annually just to keep it simple here. So that means at the end of the year, you're going to have 112%. The original amount plus 12%. Does that make sense? So at the end of the year, you're going to have 112%. So you're going to multiply by 1.12 is 112%. Compounded how many years? 45. So the power of 45. Now, as I'm punching this in, anybody want to guess, without punching it in yourself, how big this number is going to get? Really big? 819,938. Over $800,000 from one $5,000 investment at age 22. Now again, that could go up or down depending on whether you invest a little bit more conservatively, a little bit more risky. If you get risky investments, it could be more, or you could be less because the investments don't work. If you go more guaranteed investments, it could be less just because you get a lower return, but you're not going to, there's no little chance of losing it, you know, things like that. But I mean, that's a pretty significant number. Now let's say you decide, you know what, screw that. I'm young, I worked hard to get through school. I deserve to enjoy my money. I want a new car. I want a new four-wheeler or whatever, snowmobile or boat or whatever. Retirement's 45 years away. I'm going to wait until I'm 32 years old. And at 32 years old, I'll put away that same $5,000. Now we're assuming that I'm still going to be able to get 12%, but it's going to be for how long now? Only 35 years. Anybody want to guess? You're only going to get 263,998. So just under 264,000. It cuts that number almost to a fourth, less than a third of what you would have got if you'd have put it in 10 years earlier. Now that's still significant. I mean, it's still worth putting the money away. But if you just waited a few years before you started spending your money on toys, it makes that huge of a difference. Now let's say you really screw up. You get to be my age. I am 42. And then you put away that $5,000. So now we only have how long? 25 years. I don't even want to hit equals because it's going to make me cry. I got a 0 I got to put in there. I can adjust that. So 85,000 almost exactly. Me here, by waiting to do it at 42 instead of 22, I get 1/10 of what you would have got at 22. Now that's not putting 5,000 away every year. That's putting $5,000 away once. Let me show you how significant this is. This is one of those examples. I know I'm preaching a little bit right now, but I have to do it. So we're going to start out here, 22 years of age. We're going to go up to 67. And we'll start out, let's just do the 5,000 every year. At 12%. Let's see what you're going to have. Anybody want to guess if you did the 5? Now we said 5,000 once at 22 is over 800,000 in your retirement. What if you did that 5,000 every year? Anybody want to guess? I guess I'm going to have to widen my column, I can tell you that. Anybody? It's a little bit easier to read once I format this here. We're going to get rid of the decimals. Over $7 million. Now, I mean, the discipline to put away $5,000 a year, obviously, maybe not so much, but here's where I'm going to get preachy a little bit again, if I haven't been bad enough already. We're going to consider two different possibilities. Our first possibility here is what we discussed. That person that says, you know what? No, I worked hard to get through school. I am going to play for a while. So this person from 22 to 28 plays with their money. They buy boats. They buy a new car. They buy four-wheelers, nicer apartments. Maybe they buy a house. I don't know. Not that buying a house is a bad idea. It's not. But they don't start putting any money away for retirement until they're 29 years old. Anybody want to guess what their balance is? They went from 7.6 million down to 3.4. That's cutting it in half. Now let's look over at this person. Let's say this person says, you know what? I value my retirement, so I'm going to do that first. I'm going to start at 22. I'm going to put away that money every year. And at 29, I'm going to be relatively comfortable. And starting at 29, I don't know, I'm not going to put any more away. I'm going to take every penny I make after that, I'm going to play with it. Now think about that. This person got to play for what, 7 years? This person pinched pennies for 7 years, and they're going to get to play for the next 40 years, from 29 to 67. Anybody want to guess who's better off at 67? This person's much better off. That first 6 or 7 years of your life investing for retirement after you're out of school is worth more than the next 40 years of your life as far as saving for your retirement is. Now, like I said, I don't mean to preach to you, but it's the example I wanted to show you. I mean, even if you're older than 22 or 25, the sooner you can get in and start putting money away, the better. If you have kids, it's a great way to go. By the way, here's another example I like to show people. I'm only going to go up to like 21 here. Let's say when you have a child, Let's say the day that child is born, you put away $5,000. You just let it sit there till they're 20, 21 years old. Now, 18 would be the age they go to college. That $5,000 is going to turn into $35,000 to $40,000 for a college fund. Here's the one that always got me in trouble. I worked as an investment advisor for a little while. This one got people really mad at me. A number of parents that came in that had kids that were sophomores or juniors in high school, about 16, 17 years of age. And they said, hey, we've got like $10,000 put away for our kids' college. What can I do with that money to help them pay for college? And my answer was always, don't. Put it away in a retirement fund for them. Let them borrow the money for college. Retirement funds are protected from college. When they figure out your financial aid, you have savings accounts or assets that count against your eligibility for financial aid. Retirement accounts do not count against it. And starting at the age of 16, you can actually start putting in retirement accounts. You can actually do IRAs. The restriction is you cannot put more in an IRA than what you actually make that year. So let's say your kid has a job, and at 16 they make $2,100. You can take out of that $10,000 you've got put away, saved up, you can put $2,100 into an IRA for them. Let's say the next year they earn $2,800, so you put away $2,800. At 18, they earn a little bit more. What is that, $8,100? So now there's $1,900 of that $10,000 left, you put that in away the last year. So right now, they're sitting at just that. You've put away that $10,000 for them. When they get to be 66 years old, you've just made your kid a millionaire in their retirement. They have the rest of their life to pay back their loans for college if they have to take out loans, but their retirement is set. Now, as we saw by this example over here, if you do it the other way, that $10,000 is going to get them through maybe a year of college, a year and a half if they go to a cheaper school. They're still going to have loans. So then they're going to get out of college, they're going to pay those loans back, and they're going to be 35 years old before they start saving for retirement. Again, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, just throwing out the numbers examples for you. I've rambled on long enough today. There is a new quiz for you to do that is due tonight at 11:59 p.m. tonight. And there is a new homework that is due Thursday. And of course, on Thursday is test 3. Once again, we'll take about the first 2 hours to do the test, and we'll have about a 40-minute lecture after the test.
That's going to be on this for everything.
Yes, the compound interest will not be on the test, at least not the investment side of it, but there might be like a simple, 3 years, 8%, something like that.